A leaked U.S. intelligence report that claimed the U.S. missile strike did not destroy Iran's nuclear program, and President Trump and his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, are in a state over this. Watch.
This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. It was obliteration. And you'll see that.
Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect. But, Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally what the president says.
I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
First of all, why does he call it scum? I mean, why does he have to do that and speak like that?
Yeah.
It's so not presidential.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was just a preliminary report, and Trump's CIA director is backing their claim that the damage was severe. But if Trump was already had made up his mind about this, he already made up his mind before he knew and we knew what really happened. So is he obliterating the truth? He loves that word. Look, I personally would like it to have been successful. I think that Iran, a rogue state like that, having a nuclear bomb, I've been worrying about nuclear war since I'm a child hiding under a desk.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I used to say, why do I have to take my library books back? We're all going to die anyway. That was when I was a child. Mm-hmm. So I hope that I wanted him to be successful, but he lies so much that you never know what the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saying that, because I did feel like there was some reaction. It wasn't across the board of people who, because they like Donald Trump, they wanted these strikes to fail. And I would remind folks, 79%
Because they don't like Donald
Because they don't like Donald Trump.
It's irrelevant, that part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
79% of Americans agree that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. There's obviously debate over these strikes. Many people oppose the strikes, but I would say this. If they were successful, that is the most likely outcome to keep us from getting into a bigger war with Iran. China is sitting this out. Russia is sitting this out. We, as of now, are not on the cusp of World War III, and I'd encourage people to walk that language back. And today, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is housed by the United Nations, said that the Iranian centrifuges at Fordo are no longer operational. I've talked to a number of military experts from the Obama administration and the first Trump administration who believe that these strikes were profoundly successful. But I'll say this, I've been in the Pentagon press briefing room, I've briefed at that podium, and we had a rule of thumb, initial reports are often inaccurate. The fog of war is a real thing. It takes a while to get assessments. Yeah. And while I think this DIA report was accurate at the time, I don't think it's going to stand. I think that we're going to hear from Israeli intelligence, European intelligence, and our other 18 intelligence agencies.
Why does he have to come out and say we obliterated?
He's
why
a politician and he's Trump. Have you met Donald Trump?
And why do they let him do that?
I don't think anyone controls what he says, but I would point to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, who briefed today, and he was much more measured. He described the operation, explained why it was successful, and praised our brave U.S. troops who carried this out.
But when you say, why did they let him?
I know. Well,
who are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about, the Republican Congress, his cabinet, people around him.
Because they let him do everything.
I know. I'm not saying that they've done it or that I'm hopeful.
For much lesser things, they have not done.
I'm praying that they
But
would.
I think the point that when you ask that question, the point is that it really highlights the difference between Trump first term and Trump second term. In Trump first term, he had a General Mathis, running DOD. He had a General Kelly at Department of Homeland Security and then as his chief of staff. Today, he's got Pete Hegseth, a weekend Fox News host whose biggest qualification to be Department of Defense Secretary is that he is a big suck-up to Donald Trump. And so then they all go out there and they use the same exact language, right? They all use the word obliterate. It's like, I want to give them a thesaurus at least, because if it was a drinking game and the word was obliterate, we'd all be dead of alcohol poisoning. They sound like trained parrots. But listen, whenever you see Trump picking a fight the way he's doing with CNN, MSNBC, my God, they're even berating Jennifer Griffin from Fox News. Whenever he's picking a fight with AOC, as he was doing from Air Force One, he's trying to distract. So he's trying to pick that fight so that we talk about him trying to squash the free press, asking legitimate questions,
Yeah.
because we have been here before where presidents have exaggerated and lied. May I remind you, weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
He's picking a fight to distract us from what these intelligence reports are saying and from what is a legitimate debate and
And
question.
from that big, beautiful bill that nobody
I
likes.
think it's part distraction, of course, but I think it's much more insidious than that. I think it really is an attack on the free press. I think he is much more comfortable, like many dictators and many authoritarians, with state-sponsored television. When you go to a place like Russia, and I've actually been to Russia, you watch television, mainland China, you can't trust what you're hearing. And I think he is much more comfortable in that kind of space. And the other thing that I will say is, you know, the majority of Americans disapprove of the U.S. strikes. And I agree with you, Joy, that no one wants nuclear war, but Russia has nuclear arms, the United States has nuclear arms, Pakistan, India, Israel. The only country that has actually used a nuclear weapon is the United States of America against Japan.
But over the past many years...
But let me just also say this. And so many international lawyers would argue that a U.S. military attack on Iran under the present circumstances would violate international law. And that is really my concern.
That you mentioned, all of the countries, like Russia and all, those have been used as deterrents to use the bomb.
Yes.
Over my lifetime, I've been petrified that this was going to happen, but it hasn't. But
And
a place like
hasn't
Iran...
happened because you're right. People don't want to destroy
I'm sorry,
the wall.
I don't trust Iran
the
to not
largest
use it.
state-sponsored.
And my fear is that some terrorists will pick it up also, and they want to die. The heads of state do not want to die, because they will die too.
Well, you
always
mentioned, Joy,
concerned
something
about
really
international
important when you
law.
talked about the fact that people need to distinguish their feelings for Donald Trump and the action being taken here. And I say that because when I first heard about this, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh my God, what has he done? But then as I looked into it, the very mission they held out was something President Biden had designed or had been working on over a year ago. So like John Carl said here the other day, this spans 4 administrations.
Yeah.
And part of the reason they were able to do it is because Israel had taken down Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. They were weakened. Because if you had attacked before in any of those administrations, they would have had fiery terrorist groups that would have responded. They were in the perfect situation for this administration to finally do it. So although the strikes are questionable and the methodology, Alyssa, the stats show that almost 70% of the U.S. and broadly, many of the international community do not think Iran should have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So
It's just
the
the
confusing part
it's the
is
methodology.
I agree. The confusing part here, though, is the leaks. And so, Alyssa, I wanted to ask you, because this is your specialty, when will we have more accurate? Because it keeps coming out as the administration says one thing, the leaks say another, the reporters say another. When, as someone who just wants data and information, am I going to see something that I can put my hands on?
Didn't the CIA come out with something today?
Yes. General Kane said, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who I actually think has conducted himself very credibly. This is somebody who wasn't as qualified as former chairmen, and he's so far behaved very nonpartisan and just somebody who's fact-driven, said within weeks we're going to have more information. So all 18 U.S. intel agencies are doing their own assessments. A lot of this actually is going to be under the Department of Energy, who monitors nuclear weapons and is going to be looking at that enriched uranium. And then other international entities are. The Europeans are as invested in this. The German chancellor was praising this strike and saying nobody wants to see this, but it makes the world safer. And I think that's just something we should all kind of take to heart.
All right.
And can I say something
we going to
that really
commercial?
bothers me? That he said he's trying to make it look like people are questioning these pilots.
Who's
and Donald Trump, you know, as part of the stuff he's saying is that the pilots have been criticized and that we should be ashamed of criticizing the pilots or attacking the pilots. Nobody is attacking the U.S. pilots. Everybody is proud and grateful of the men who were flying these planes, put their lives at risk, and conducted this mission. So stop lying, Donald Trump. We're all proud of our guys.
The lying is the